solitary letters colonize the earth. Ethereal simplicity clouds the interpretation of the word, whereby now letters are the naked, unclothed traces left devoid of meaning. Seized by the wind, they fall apart, dissipating into particles and dissolving into the natural surroundings of her existence. Once primely positioned within the perimeters of a page, the letters now collide with force. With nature as a co-creator, chance and accident take hold, allowing the word to succumb to its unstableness, its restlessness, consumed by the animate forces of the landscape. As letters swim and submerge, a mimicking force of immersion is exhibited by the use of her bodily movements, using the body as an ingredient in the recipe of chance, as a distributor of excavated language. She is the vehicle for this radical chaos, staging hushed performances to connect the body to the nature of poetry, transcend language, morphing it into a multi-sensory experience, and to capture the ephemerality of this transitional ritual through the concrete medium of silent film, lends the viewer not only to space to contemplate the communicative values of the unspoken message, but to encourage a dissolution of the rooted dichotomy of reading and looking, therefore challenging the intended footprint of the piece. An invading sense of liminality pokes and prods. Murmurs of liminal space penetrate the piece, urging for a search of the unknown through the lesser explored relationships in the hope to warp defined perspectives and integrate new ones. Liminal space, a concept rooted from the Latin word limen, leaks through into many of Eva Parton's works. Her probes into multiple disciplines forces a hybrid scope between concrete poetry and performative play, producing a threshold of liquid space between text and image. Existed certainties of text, of word, or image fall away, and in their place, new patterns develop and emerge. Threads of word, image, and self-bind weave unhindered, creating a blanket of troublesome in-betweenness that somehow bears vast potential. She emits no apprehension for this wandering between two different realities, this uncertain territory.
Where are we, as viewers, supposed to place this awakening text?
This chaos. She reveals an impatience with traditional methods of art and literature, stimulating this impulse to collapse words into their component parts and activate their vibrancy, their agency. Blizzards of nonsense letters unwilling to be stilled, they plunge, plummet, and slump, eventually surrendering to the elements. But never do you lose a sense of their pulse. Abandoning one familiar territory without entirely crossing the threshold into another dialogue divergent with what is already known. An invitation to agitate our senses, blur the indecisives between the world and the word, presence and absence, local and universal, private and public, while remapping our preconceived boundaries of traditional linear text. Letters become detailized from the prison of the page, from some definition and liberated from the original author's intent. The theorist Roland Barthes' Death of the Author provides us with an example of how the author's intentions became irrelevant once there is a participating active reader. The birth of the reader becomes the primary source of understanding the text's copious entanglements of meaning, appointing the author to redundancy. As Parson digests the text, a metamorphosis occurring, words flicker between horizontal coherence and movable pictorial utterances, materializing language, giving it vitality, an enlivened body. Heaps of words become rescued through this process of detournement. Close reading and live writing, a series of research-based works by Emma Cocker, investigates the qualities of language through microscopic observation. Through this close surveillance, she assimilates the malleability of language, its withheld materiality. As writing crawls into image, its meaning sinks between the creases, gathered and veiled by sheer gauze of aesthetic. The image dilutes the wrestle of stringing words into a rigid line, instead allowing their unstable presence temporarily and clinginess, moving language into the possibilities of visual, uncharted territories. One must search for a new language, one that provides original, dynamic, and transformative ideas. Below the surface, a blanket of horizontal stems snake and coil, continually creeping into new territories. The rhizome unfolds with a multitude of embryonic shoots and nodes soon to bear their latent potential. This body's origin became the shape to which emerged the philosophical concept of the rhizome. Elastic and porous, like the rhizome, 1,000 places can be entered into and unravelled from any point, posing no sign of a beginning nor end. It simply embodies middleness, a continuous pound of stops and starts, unpredictable and fluctuating. The non-linear network of the rhizome repeatedly creates anew, stalked from presupposing bodies start to colonize new areas, mapping new connections en route towards change. Here, a peripheral vision of transformation in the space of liminality presents itself. Active poetry, shifting nature, structures itself purely on the symbiotic relationship of text and image, a messy, meandering chain of in-betweenness. To understand how the two work in synchrony and merge to become one, an open, decentralized mode of thinking is required, one that cultivates a fluid understanding of reality, both in simultaneous rejection of categorization and hierarchical thinking. The rhizome and active poetry disrupt and cause friction between multiplicity and unity and authorization figures in the sense of power and organization. This web of kingship was coined by Deleuze and Guattari as lines of flight, defined as a process of becoming. A deteriorization, a route of escape from the particulate of our coded knowledge. The act of rupturing these discourses is the line of flight. In the collapse of order, the disruption of sense and the ruthlessness of chaos, the words which were once just more than justice in the landscape leave the viewer in a state of confusion, uncertainty, and an existential questioning on the potential and limitations of language. What is lurking beneath this illegibility? Who once was a reader of the original text now becomes a viewer. The material has mutated from a surface of narrative into an ethereal offering, from mere text to creative practice, departing from its previous trajectory and from the original author's intent. The piece becomes submerged into this blur authorship between writer, artist and audience. This language refused to be strained from one form, shifting and slipping into animation. An uncanny beauty presents itself through visuals of lively letters settling down to rest in a sight they do not belong.